since I sat down and did this. I'm gonna have to like get a running start. It's been a while since I've actually spoken to a camera and had a plan for what I was gonna say. Hello my friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Katie, and today I'm going to be talking about my April plans and my camp plans for NaNoWriMo. Now, I've already filmed this video once. It was supposed to come out on the 25th. I had it planned, I had it filmed, I was editing it, and the problem is that I am an extremely indecisive bitch. So what happened was I decided the project that I talked about in that video was not the one that I was actually going to be working on in April. So, you know, I had to scrap the entire thing so I didn't confuse anyone, because there's no use talking about that project in depth if I'm not going to be working on it in April or anytime soon. I can always talk about it again at another point later on down the line. So what happened? What am I working on? What's going on? I have a couple things that I want to talk about today. First announcement, I think most of you know. However, if you don't, I stream every single Friday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. We switch off channels with the Troublemakers, which is now our brand, I guess, which is Bellissimo, Steve Deerdahl, and Great Fry, and we have amazing fun time. We have awesome chats. It's great. I love it. So if you want to join those, I will have a link down below where you can find all of my co-hosts and all of those things if you want to join in, because we'll be doing them throughout camp. The second thing is that I'm actually going to be starting up my own solo live streams again. I know, wild. I'm going to be aiming for doing either Tuesday or Wednesdays at 9:30. It'll probably be Wednesdays, so if you want to check those out, I will probably have them all scheduled by the time this video goes up, so you can go check those out if you want more live streams and more sprints with moi, because I have a lot of work to do. Speaking of that work, let's dive into what I'm actually working on in Camp NaNoWriMo, or just April in general. I feel like I haven't done an update on my writing in quite a while, and this is just going to catch you up on all the things. So first, as a little bit of context, on March 15th, I sent off The Wrath King to beta readers. If you did not see my vlog, you can check that out. I think it'll be over here. It's a long one, so get yourself a coffee, sit down and chillax with me while I chat about things. I ended up sending that out the 15th of March, and then shortly after that, I wanted to dive into more stories, more work, more stuff, because, you know, I'm a workaholic. Just kind of how it is. Anyway, I spent most of that time prepping for a project that I wasn't actually going to start writing in April. I know that's what I talked about. That project currently is not happening. That is my Rebel Queer Teenagers and God Curse one, which I talked about on a couple of live streams and I posted about on Instagram. I'm still very interested in that project. However, I'm just not going to be working on it right now until like the fall, maybe that'll be my fall project. But what I am working on is another high epic fantasy. I finally started to have the pieces click together for this project. If you've been an OG subscriber and you've watched a lot of my videos from past before, don't really recommend it. They're not great. You know, whose first videos ever are, but it's Project Eclipse, which I talked about in my author to newbie tag, and I've talked about in a bunch of other videos when I talk about world building. So what I'm going to be doing with that project is I'm going to be prepping it and getting it ready for writing. At the moment, I am unsure of how many books it'll be. I think it'll be more than one. I know it'll be more than one, because I've already plotted out the ending of the first book. And so I've just been working on the world building and the characters, and I've been really enjoying it. I've been really enjoying getting immersed in this world. Basically what happened was I was working on my other project, which is more of an urban contemporary fantasy, and I just realized all kind of out of the blue that I was like, I'm just not really feeling this one right now. Like, I'm not ready to write this one. Like, it still needs some time to simmer in the back of the old noggin. Whereas this one, I've literally been planning for years. years, I tell you, years. And I have broken it apart. I've smushed pieces together. I've ripped it apart. I've done a ton of other things to it. It's very different than the original idea that I had, and there's still some aspects of the concept of the original one that are still going to be in the new draft, or the new version of it, I guess, if you want to call it that. So this is obviously a high epic adult fantasy. That is what I write. I don't know how much I want to say about it. There's kind of like there's this part of me that really wants to keep the information about this book close to my heart and like a secret, but also at the same time, like, I want to talk about more about it. I want to tell you more about the concept and more about what I'm doing with it and what I am interested in it, why I'm interested in it. It's not a large world. There's only 2 countries, 2 kingdoms, 2 nations, I guess you could say, because they're not really kingdoms. There's no kings. There's queens though. There's two nations, there are two different types of people, and there are two different magic systems. There's a magic system that is based on one nation and one magic system that is based on the other nation. And there's two different like species. There's like humanoid ones that are more human, or I'd call them humans, probably mortals with power, like most fantasies. And then the other nation is more of like this, I guess you could call them elven. They're not elves, but shorthand, that's kind of what they're similar to, just to give you a touchstone for which to kind of base your assumptions of them on. Yeah, so it's a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of things. I've been really struggling because I started working on this idea a while ago, as I mentioned. There's proof of me working on this way back in July or June of 2020 when I just started my channel. And there's a aspect of the book that I guess I can talk about because it's like more like a trope. Essentially, it's kind of like the Shadow Fold from the Shadow and Bone series, and I had called it the Fold, but I hadn't read Shadow and Bone yet, so I didn't know it was called the Fold in Shadow and Bone. And then I read Shadow and Bone and I was like, fuck, I have to change the name now. Literally, they are only alike in name. They are very different otherwise. They're not any way related in a concept, origin, even their function, and how my fold is very different than the actual Shadow Fold in the Shadow and Bone series. So I'm not really worried about being compared to the Grishaverse and people thinking that I like pulled from the Grishaverse because you read about I've written about my fold. I have been working on this project for a while. I am very excited to work on it. I have a lot of fun characters. I have been having such a fun time working on it, and I am really excited to talk more about it during April. Let's talk about my April plans for this project. What am I actually going to get done with it? Katie, stop blabbering about stuff and just tell us some details. All right, here's your details. For this project in Camp NaNoWriMo, I am hoping to get 20,000 words of draft. It doesn't necessarily have to be in order, but I would like it to be. I would like to get 20,000 words in it. Right now the book has come kind of easily. I currently have 22,000 words in snippets. So working. This book just kind of has come to me in bits and pieces over time. I would like to outline the first book. I would like to outline in broad strokes the rest of the series, and I would like to, in general, work on solidifying a lot of the details and stuff. I'd like to solidify the world building, and I'd like to solidify the history and the creatures and all of the kinds of things that are rolling into it, you know, to make it a more cohesive and full high fantasy, since obviously that's what I love to write. Now, that said, I need some help from you guys. I know in some live streams and in the comments of some of my videos, people have expressed the, curiosity about my process of how I world build a high fantasy. So I'm planning on perhaps doing a world building series of how I world build a place using this project, and specifically talking more about the details that I've come up with for the book. If that's something y'all are interested in, it would be in no way anything where I am trying to give you advice. It would be more of like a learning tool and more of me trying to articulate my process, because I'm not very good at articulating my process, and I think that's part of my problem. If you're interested in that series and you have any specific questions or specific things you'd like me to talk about and explore more in depth when it comes to world building and high fantasy books, please leave me a comment down below. If you're not interested, that's totally cool too. Like, this series is really going to be for my viewers. It's obviously going to be giving you an insight into my brain and how I function, which may be completely different to how you function. That's totally cool too. Just if you want to see more about my process, what kinds of things do you want to see from my process? Because I really want to make sure I'm tailoring what content I'm giving you so it's actually either helpful or, fulfills a curiosity, if you know what I mean. So if you have any questions at all, please leave them down below for me. Thank you very much. So those are my plans for my project. I think I'm going to continue calling it Project Eclipse, even though it's not really the same as Project Eclipse, but I'm just going to make a whole project history video, which is another thing I'm planning for this month, is I'm going to be making a project history video so people can talk more about where their idea has come from, how it's developed, and then more of the history of the actual book itself, like the process of making the book. If anyone is curious about knowing more in-depth things about past Katie and her crazy, crazy time when she scribbled things in journals. Anyway, there are two other things that I'm going to be working on in the month of April that I'm probably not going to talk about very much outside of this video and mentioning them, or, cheekily talking about them on live streams and mentioning them on live streams just to torture y'all. And there are two secret projects. The first secret project is one that I'm working on kind of as a collaboration with a couple of other people, and it is something that I probably will never talk about on this channel. It is kind of like this project that is mostly just for fun. It's just as a kind of almost like an experiment, almost as like a pushing the boundaries kind of thing. That's one of them. I can't give you more than that. I'm hoping to get 40,000 words, roughly, maybe-ish, in it. I want to get at least the first act of the book drafted. My second secret project is one that no one knows about because it's actually a fan fiction. So in the past, I have written fan fiction. Before July of last year, I hadn't written fan fiction in probably like 5 or 6 years. I've never been someone who's written a lot of fan fiction. I've only written maybe like a handful of fics. However, sometimes I get brainworms and they stick and they're hard to get rid of. So that's what happens sometimes. And ironically, last July I was working on a fan fiction, which I talked about in a couple of videos, just like vaguely mentioned some details on it. It's just these are just self-indulgent things that I get to work on. They're my pantsing projects because as a writer, I still really like to pants things, even though on the grand scheme of hoping to get published, that is not the strategy that I've chosen to take. I tend to be a lot slower fixing the books that I pants, and they tend to be less cohesive, less of a big, like, actual book that people would want to read, as opposed to, like, self-indulgent snippets and a self-indulgent story about fake marriage and a murder at a marriage retreat place. That's what my July fanfic was about, if you were curious. That's the tropes. You know, it's fun, smushy stuff that I really enjoyed writing, and this time, this fanfiction, I mean, it's inspired by something that I've been really enjoying recently. It is kind of an exploration of a couple of topics that I personally have wanted to explore, but that I really would just want to explore like now, and I don't want to wait to explore them within one of my own books, because I feel like I have to plan more of my own books. I'm not currently drafting any of my own stories right now. I'm mostly just working on prep and planning and outlining and world building. So I just literally yesterday I sat down and wrote like 5,000 words of this random little thing that that I'm now going to post on AO3 about. It's nothing serious, but it's something that I'm doing because I want to, because it's refreshing. It is something that is just for me and the people who read it. I mean, that's pretty much it. For me, I often find that the writing process is really solitary, and since I'm no longer in school and no longer having critique workshops, I have not been having the stimulus of feedback from people as much. The validation that I crave from people telling me they like my shit is real. And while I do realize that for my novels that I'm hoping to one day be published, I want them to be polished, I want them to be cohesive, I want people to be able to actually enjoy them as a book. So I'm never going to talk openly about what my fanfiction is or reveal what my fanfiction writing name is on AO3, just because this is something for me and the people who end up reading it and who end up enjoying it. You know, if they find it, y'all understand. Hopefully you'll understand. And maybe if you are in either of the fandoms that I'm currently writing in, maybe you've already read it. So, who knows? Who fucking knows? That's just what I'm doing. I'll still be working on that one. That one is just, I have no goals for it. Just write it until it's no longer fun. There's no pressure on it. That's the kind of the thing, like the double-edged sword about wanting to be a published author and also being on AuthorTube, is there's, at least in my head, there's these expectations that I can have good work that I can show people and I can show progress for, and that I want to polish and make as good as I can. And it's not that I don't want to make this fan fiction as good as I can. I just don't have to worry about maybe like impressing other people, because there's no one to impress. I'm enjoying it. I think it's fun. I think it's good. That's all that really matters. You feel me? Anyway, I have been rambling on for way too long on this April NaNoWriMo announcement video. Let me know what you're working on down in the comments. Oh my god, I've forgotten how to do an outro. I am fairly active over on Instagram, so if you want to go give me a follow, I would really appreciate it. I post 3 times a week on there, and I post every single day almost on my stories, because I cannot shut up. And it's a lot easier to not shut up on Instagram because I don't have to edit the shit that I say, like, on a computer. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Happy Camp NaNoWriMo. I hope you are doing well, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!